Hi, I'm Paul from Bike Social, and today we're down at our local dealers looking at bikes for shorter riders. Bike manufacturers have to build a bike that's a compromise, and they don't have the luxury of car manufacturers who obviously have adjustable seats, and they don't have the same integration between man and machine. So that does bring some challenges. As a small rider, I have never found a bike that I couldn't actually ride, but there's plenty that I wouldn't want to ride on a daily basis, and I've given up flat foot on any bike. This is probably the only one that I've actually been able to flat foot properly on. But just because you're small doesn't mean to say that you have to get stuck on a bike like this little 125. So manufacturers would love their bikes to fit everyone all the time, but the truth is that we're all different and that can't be the case. But plenty of bikes do fit smaller riders straight out of the crate, and these are two that we've found that are absolutely fantastic. The Triumph Bonneville has always been a great bike for smaller riders, especially this model, which has got the 17-inch cast alloy wheels, because it's got a seat height of 760mm, and that is really very low. But you're not compromising. It is a proper motorbike, fully formed, with an 865cc engine. This is a great choice. Take a look at the spec sheet and you wouldn't automatically think that Yamaha's MT-07 was a great bike for shorter riders, but it is. Yamaha claim 805mm as the seat height on this bike, and that's okay, that's not too tall, but it ain't as short as something like the 740mm Bonneville. But what's important, and this is why it's really important that you sit on the bikes before you buy them and you don't just take the spec sheet as gospel, is that it's such a narrow-waisted thing. And that's important because the width of the seat is just as important almost as the height of the seat. Because if you think about it, a wider bike, you're splaying your legs, you've got your pelvis is being splayed apart. But this is nice, you can keep your legs nice and tightly together and you can get both feet down on this bike. So even for me, I'm not flat footing, but in my natural riding position, just getting one cheek slightly off the seat, it's very comfortable, very controllable, and this for me feels absolutely perfect. It is really important when you're thinking about buying a bike that you do actually sit on the bike and you play with it and you feel what it's like. And it's also, I would say, important to try with your riding gear on. I know I'm not wearing my riding gear today. Obviously the bike feels nice and light and perfect for me. But if you think you've got thick layers of winter clothing on there as well, that is going to affect the way that you sit on the bike, and it's certainly going to restrict your movement. So it's always very important as well that you think about that. And if you do wear thick clothing, realise that that's going to affect how you feel on the bike. Bikes like this Triumph Trophy, big tourer, recognise that. You look at a bike like this, and a lot of BMWs, they've got adjustable seats. Quite easy to do. Take the seat off, and there's a little bar which flicks between two positions that are 20mm difference, and that just gives you that little bit extra height. While we're on the subject of seats, it's also worth looking to see if the manufacturer of the bike that you're thinking about buying does an option seat. A lot of manufacturers, for example Triumph, again with this Trophy, will do you an accessory seat which is a little bit lower than the standard one. The one thing you have to consider is that by making it lower, they're actually usually just taking material out of it. And by taking material out of it, it means it's going to be less padded and a little bit less comfortable on a long run. So worth considering as well, when you're thinking about buying a bigger bike, is how it's actually going to react in the real world. Now this is a big heavy bike, 300 kilograms. It's fine, you can control it, but what's important to understand is that because you've got shorter legs, there's a bit less margin for error. And this bike here in the showroom is still heavy, but it doesn't have the 25 kilograms of fuel that it's going to have in the real world when you're filled up and ready to go on a ride. So it's important also to think about not just how it feels in the showroom, how it's going to feel when you're fully kitted up, the bike's fully loaded on the panniers and fully loaded with fuel. That's going to make a bit of a difference to the way it feels in the real world too. Some shorter riders, well, they just say, just lower the suspension. And for most bikes, that is an option, but do beware if you are thinking about doing that. Manufacturers spend millions and millions of pounds trying to get their bikes right, getting them safe, making sure that they're at absolute optimum performance for you. For many bikes, there are wishbone kits that you can get which will reduce the rear suspension height and obviously make it lower. But you've got to be aware that you're making a fundamental change to the geometry of your bike, and what you may risk doing is affecting the handling, the stability, the speed in which it will turn into a corner. It's not a risk I'm personally willing to take, but there are plenty out there who will say it's a great way to make a bike fit you better. However, if your bike comes out of the factory with adjustable suspension, it is worth looking at adjusting the suspension preload. If you turn the preload down, it's going to mean that the spring is going to compress more when you sit on it, and that's going to give you the feeling that it's a shorter or lower bike. However, you've got to be aware when you're on the road, because you're going to lose some of the reason why you would want to have that adjustable suspension, and you're going to be compromising the suspension when you're on the go. So we've looked at lots of different types of bikes, and certainly all of them can be ridden by shorter riders. In many ways, it's up to you as the individual what you're looking for from a bike and what is important for you when it comes to feeling comfortable. There's no doubt that some riders, particularly the less experienced ones, will want to get 2 feet flat on the ground. They will want to feel in total control all the time. And if that's what you want, then that's great, and bikes like the Bonneville here and the MT-07 are fantastic for you. If you do want something like the Trophy or the Tiger Explorer that we looked at earlier, there's also a range of accessories that you can get to personalise the bike and make it a little bit more to your feeling. But you're probably still going to have to hang off a little bit when you stop at traffic lights, and you're going to probably have to accept that you're not going to be flat-footing both feet down. But you know what? After 20 years of riding motorcycles, I've never known what it's like anyway. You'll get used to it eventually. Just make sure you ride safe and you ride within your limits, and you'll be great.